Today's guest has put everything on the line in saving Britain.
People have had enough. They really have had enough. And I think if you push people too far too quickly, then you're going to get that reaction. I think Britain's at that point.
He's been exposing the corruption and the globalist system for years. And this is the blueprint they are following.
They're going to say it's convenient, it's safe, it's effective. Cash gives you privacy. Cash gives you freedom. Cash gives you autonomy. And the globalists don't want that. Globalists are all about controlling other people. They're obsessed with it.
After buying and selling businesses for a living, he learned the game of politics so he can make a change.
I think this is the last final opportunity in the United Kingdom to solve things politically at the next general election, whenever that happens, because there isn't a single political entity out there that I would trust. And I will say this, the only solution to getting the UK back on track is
his name, Jim Ferguson. Jim, how you doing?
Baraka, I'm really good and delighted to be on. What a great show you do. It's an honour for me to be here, and I'm very much looking forward to speaking with you.
Oh, it's an honor for me, sir. I've been trying to get this I've been trying to get you on the show. It's just that so many things moving forward. I just wanted to prepare, make sure that the day that I get you on, it's like a very smooth timeline where we can properly do a good conversation. And I'm really excited to get on this call, on this podcast, and I hope the guests will enjoy as well. Now, just before we start, could you quickly tell us more about yourself, who you really are, what you've done in the background? Because we did a little bit of research, but I'm sure sometimes the people who write about you or the things that we can see online, it's not it could be wrong. Someone might say the wrong thing and stuff. So could you tell us who you really are? Who's Jim Ferguson?
Who is Jim Ferguson? Well, I'm a very ordinary guy, to be honest with you, Baraka. And I've been in business for a long time, so I'm a business entrepreneur. Got involved in politics back in May 2019 when I joined the Brexit Party, became a parliamentary candidate. That was a very intense 6 months, and I was never really on social media at all.
Right.
But they said, look, you're standing as a candidate, you need to get a Twitter account going, and it was Twitter back then. So I did. Got to the December election. When all the dust had settled, myself, my colleague in Barnsley, came first and second in the entire country, coming closest to winning our seats. So I had a great campaign team. A lot of them were actually from the left of centre, surprisingly. I got on very well with them, and they were absolutely committed Brexiteers. So I did that. Of course, the pandemic came, and I bought a little farm a few years before that. Went back to that, put up new fencing, kept myself busy. And what then happened was, a couple of years after that, I was out with the dogs, walking across the field, and I've told this story a few times now. But it basically, Twitter flashed into my mind. It was one of the most bizarre things. I hadn't even been thinking about it. And I thought, I should do something with it. I haven't posted for the last 2 years. There's probably nobody even there. I should probably just cancel the account. So I went in, sat down, made a coffee. I was having a coffee, got out the settings, went to the delete button, and my finger was quite literally just hovering over the delete button. Then I thought, I wonder if there is anybody still in there. So I had a quick look, and there was, I think in the December, I'd got to something like 2,800 followers, and there was still 1,800 people in there. So I thought, I'm not just going to delete the channel, I'm actually going to say goodbye to everybody, because I'm just not using it. Took the camera out, set it up, and at the very last moment, I just had this feeling not to do that, but to say something else. And I spoke about something fairly random, something along the lines of, hey, I hope everybody's doing okay. What strange times we live in. The pandemic, the lockdowns, all that craziness. And it was only maybe a 90-second clip, and the response was immediate and very surprising, because people were saying, Jim, where have you been? It's great to see you. What do you think about this and that? It's kind of long story short. I started getting invited on to other podcasts and started to speak out quite vociferously about the whole pandemic.
I think that's when you remove the glove, right? I have to say.
Yeah, I did. And of course, when Elon Musk bought over Twitter and it became X, because before that, under Jack Dorsey, anybody that
Yeah.
was conservative leaning, anybody that was sort of right wing, were getting decimated. They were getting thrown off, cancelled.
Yeah.
And I knew if I'd spoken out before that, I would have just been another statistic. But anyway, I started to speak out a lot about it. Started to interview a lot of doctors and scientists and epidemiologists, virologists, really, really smart people. And I started to build this picture up that there was something deeply wrong in society. So fast forward, I went to the United States, got invited to go over there in a series of speaking engagements. I was across 7 different states from North Dakota all the way down to Alabama. I had a wonderful time, very, very busy. I was up at 4 o'clock every morning doing a radio show at 6. And then I didn't want to fly. I just wanted to drive and go into all these little towns across America, have a coffee, have a chat with people. But of course, that took a little bit longer than it would have been if I was flying. But I did about 3.5 weeks, got back to London, and some people in Canada had seen what I was saying and doing. And of course, being on stage in my full Highland dress was something the Americans loved as well. So there's a lot of people telling me about all their ancestors who had come from Scotland as well. So it was really quite a wonderful time.
Yeah.
But some of the Canadians wanted me to go over there. So I flew to Ottawa. I was there with Eva Vlaardinbroek, a big influencer from the Netherlands. And I just had a great time. Ended up going down marches with the Canadian truckers, the convoy movement down in Parliament Hill in Ottawa. I got to know a lot of the people there, and I was asked to speak. It was quite impromptu. I didn't know they were going to ask me to do that, but I did, spoke to them. There was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people at those events. And I was so inspired anyway with what the Canadian Freedom Convoy had done that when I got back to London from Canada, I decided that I should set up something along the lines of a freedom movement, but internationally.
Yeah.
And I spent 15 months reaching out to thousands of people in the States, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, all over the place. And I was building this incredible network of people, and I learned so much. And that was when the penny started to drop, Baraka, because I suddenly realized that people in Canada were going through the same problems with their government that we were going through in the United Kingdom. Yeah. And it was the same in Australia, same in New Zealand. So there was a picture, of a globalist order that were really pulling the strings.
Yeah.
And these people that are in as prime ministers or presidents, they're really just puppets. And I got more and more involved in research and doing all of that. So to jump forward a little bit, the channel completely exploded. We set up Freedom Train International. I was the founder of the organization. Right. And we have networks now across multiple countries. And we often do live broadcasts, especially when we're investigating something at the moment, like I'm actually investigating something quite substantial at the moment. And I've been to Romania and I was in Bulgaria just a few weeks ago. I'm about to leave for Brussels, Germany, and I'll be in Budapest just after that. So there's a lot going on.
You mentioned that I should be quick today because you're leaving very, very soon. Now, so you're the founder of Freedom Train International. You are an international ambassador for Advance UK, and you are, of course, a former Brexit Party parliamentary candidate. And man, those are a lot of stuff that you've done there, and you've just got, I think you probably went back 6 years of your life, and you've done so many things, right? The thing that you just told me there, I'm assuming it's just 6 years. Well, of course, you left a lot of things out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to buy and sell companies. I mean, before that, I was just real traditional business. I mean, my father was in the British military. Most of my family were in the military or the police. And I ended up being in quite a unique position because I ended up sort of getting recruited into working with specialist police units. I was never a police officer, but I was a civilian, but I was involved with campaigns for serious organized crime, which bordered on counter-terrorism, and a lot of the people I came into contact with were within the police intelligence community. So, yeah, I did that. I did a lot of that for about 14 years. And of course, if anybody had asked me, if you went back 6 or 7 years ago and said, what will you be doing in 6 or 7 years' time, I would never have imagined that I would have changed direction so completely and do the things that I'm doing now. And you talked about Advance UK. So I as soon as I'd kept in contact with Ben, as you know Ben very well, and Ben was in the Brexit Party. I'd kept in contact with him, was hoping that he was going to go into reform, sort of suggested a few times in open posts that he should think about doing that. Of course, he did as deputy leader. Didn't work out. And we can talk a bit more about some of that if you want. But what he did do was he started Advance UK. And I'd spoken to him about a week before he was due about a week before he actually launched it. So I'd made arrangements to go down and see him in London for an interview. I didn't know what he was doing about the party. But the day before I went to see him, he launched the party. So I immediately joined. When I was sitting down with him, having a chat before we did the recording, he said, "Delighted that you're here, and I'm delighted you've joined the party. Would you join the Advance UK College?" And I didn't know really much about that, but I said, well, what's involved? He said, well, it's going to be a body of probably about 100 people that are going to help to set policy on immigration, healthcare, policing, all the different national security apparatus, that type of thing.
Right.
So I said yes. And I went through the process, became an Advanced UK College member. And a few months ago, I was invited over to the inauguration of Karol Nawrocki, the new leader of Poland. Great guy. And while I was there, I got a phone call from Ben's chief of staff saying, "When are you back in London? Ben wants to speak to you." I said, "Well, I'll be back in a couple of days." And they said, "That's fine." Went back to see them, and they said, "Look, you're doing a lot of work internationally." Because I've been all over Europe. I mean, I've been, as I said at the start, I've been in the States and Canada several times now, and I've been in many, many different countries across Europe. In particular, well, I've been in France, Germany, I've been in Western Europe, but I've also been in Eastern Europe a lot.
Right.
I've got a big interest in Eastern Europe, what's happening there. We can talk about that if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, they asked if I would take on the role of international ambassador. So it was a huge honor for me, So I'm already connected to many members of the European Parliament. There are also senators, congressmen and women in the United States that follow what I do as well. So yeah, I know lots of people, great people. And I think that building that unity is what I'm all about. That's what Freedom Train International is all about too. Building patriotic networks, finding that common ground. And I think it was an easy thing for me to say yes to that, because working as an international ambassador on behalf of Advance UK, I'm already coming into contact with a lot of these people. And there's a lot of them out there now watching Advance UK very closely with a lot of interest.
So you're basically taking advance from the UK border and spread it around the world. That is huge. That is huge. Now I want to get deep into what's taking place today. I mean, we of course all the things that you're doing, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into the digital ID, the corruption that you obviously are very much interested in exposing. Almost all your posts, you're exposing something. So the corruption, the UK government, and of course we're going to get into advance and the future of course the UK. But I want to dive into what has just happened, well, what's happening right now as we speak, or maybe what happened the last couple weeks, the last couple hours. Now this is our Prime Minister. It goes by the name of Kier Starmer. I don't know if people know of him, but he made a statement today. He came out saying, hey, we are, of course, as you already know, Trump is demanding for all the allies, the NATO allies, to basically go and help. And this was Kier Starmer's speech today addressing the nation. Watch.
I want to take a moment to set out how we're responding to this crisis and standing up for the British people. Our priority is always the national interest. And so we have been clear and consistent in our objectives throughout this conflict. First, we will protect our people in the region. Second, while taking the necessary action to defend ourselves and our allies, we will not be drawn into the wider war. And third, we will keep working towards a swift resolution that brings security and stability back to the region. and stops the Iranian threat to its neighbours. I want to see an end to this war as quickly as possible, because the longer it goes on, the more dangerous the situation becomes, and the worse it is for the cost of living back here at home. Now, in recent days, I've visited community centres in England and Northern Ireland, and I know people are really worried about what this means for them. And look, I grew up working class in the 1970s. I remember how it feels when you're struggling to make ends meet. It's a knot in your stomach every time the bills come through the door. And that's at the forefront of my mind in meeting this crisis.
So that is Kier Starmer right there, telling the world, his three ways of dealing with this. Number one is to take care of Britain. Number two is to make sure his allies are not being helped to stay away from the war. And number three is that he wants to make sure the war ends. Do you think Kier Starmer has taken a good position here to say, hey, we're not going to be dragged into this wider war? What do you think?
He's taking a globalist position. He's certainly not doing it in the best interests of the United Kingdom or our allies. This is a moment of testing for him, and he is failing abjectly because he talks about not wanting to send shipping warships into the Straits of Hormuz. But that's a defensive position to protect international shipping. It's something that Britain should be doing, and something that an advanced UK government would most certainly be doing. He is under enormous pressure, of course, from the Islamics within his own party and those voter bases. And I think a lot of people are seeing through this. Yeah. He's worried about Gordon and Denton, the by-election result. He's worried about the upcoming May elections as well, because he's trying to pander to the radical elements of the Islam community in the United Kingdom. But that's not going to work. And all he's doing is really upsetting our closest ally, being the United States of America. Trump is looking for an international alliance to deal with this situation in the Straits of Hormuz that is absolutely going to impact energy prices. But taking this weak, lackluster move that he's taking is something that is going to go very, very badly for him. He should have been standing shoulder to shoulder with our American friends and allies. An advanced UK government would certainly be doing that. So he's demonstrating great weakness. And we have to ask the question, is Kier Starmer really in charge? Is he really in control? I've argued for a long time that prime ministers and presidents, some of them, they're only there because some of the men in grey suits that you never hear about, you never see, are actually the ones pulling the strings. And the globalist order is very, very well structured. He does what he's told. He's not actually a leader, Baraka. He is simply an administrator of globalist policies.
Man, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Just a quick pause, guys. I really do need to talk to you guys, honestly, for a moment. You know, this channel means everything to me, right? It means absolutely the world to me. I give everything I can. I think it's my favorite part of the day, sitting here and reporting to you guys, or going outside and doing heavy reports outside. And I've been doing this since I was 14, on and off. I've quit multiple times. I've come back, I've quit, I've come back, and now I'm here, and we're here to stay. This is the next 40 years plan for me. But honestly, lately, it's been really heavy on me. Not the work, of course, I enjoy doing this, but carrying the work alone, fighting for stories, trying to highlight these stories that matters, especially when it feels like nobody's listening and need your help. I wouldn't be asking if I truly didn't need your support. So if you believe in what we're doing here, if you believe in what I'm doing, what we're trying to build the next 30 years, if you've ever felt like this show speaks for you, I'm asking you as a friend, please keep this show going. Your support will mean more than you will ever know. And together we can finally wake up the ones who are still asleep with the truth, because the nation is desperately asking for it. So please hit the first link in the description if you can and support the channel. Thank you so much. Let's get back into the video. So you don't believe that Prime Minister Kier Starmer is the one pulling the strings, and you think there's someone who's doing this and he's following the global order, and could you dive deep into that? What is the global order?
I mean, well, if you cast your minds back, when you were first introducing me, you talked about COVID, for example, and of course that was a Conservative government back then, Boris Johnson, and of course then Rishi Sunak. These people are globalists. The Conservative Party is no longer conservative. It's conservative in name only. The Labour Party under Sir Keir Hardie would look at what Starmer and the modern Labour Party has become with disdain, because he doesn't represent the working classes any longer. He talks about being a working class guy and his dad was a toolmaker. You know, absolute nonsense. He's never had to do a real job in his life. And the Director of Prosecutions, goodness, what a bit of a faff he made of that as well. So, look, there is a shadow government, if you want to call it that, made up of a lot of elites, billionaires, and those running the European Union. And they're very much against national identity. They don't like sovereignty. It's why we see the attacks on our national flag so much. It's why you see patriots in the United Kingdom being arrested for waving the Union flag.
Yeah.
Because they don't want strong national identities. It's why Viktor Orban in Hungary comes under so much pressure and attack from the EU as well, because he puts Hungarian people first, which is what every good national leader should do. They should always put their own people first and foremost. But there is a global order. And essentially, Baraka, it's quite deep. I mean, you've got a lot of parts of it. You've got the Trilateral Commission, you've got the Council of 300, you've got the Bilderbergers, you've got the World Economic Forum. They are all different, but they have one thing in common. They want a one world global order that they control. They don't like elections. They have a disdain for humanity. And one of the things, to answer your earlier question, was when we saw during the pandemic, all these national leaders like Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand and Dan Andrews, another World Economic Forum acolyte in the state of Victoria, all coming out with these exact same policies. Trudeau in Canada, Biden in the United States, Macron in France, all saying the same things at exactly the same time: build back better. Do you remember that? Well, it's not by chance. And the controlled mainstream media, they're all on board with this as well. It's why there is such a turnoff now for the mainstream media. That's why platforms like X and what Elon Musk is doing is so important. What shows like you are doing is so critically important, because you're questioning the narrative and also providing the evidence for it.
Yeah, this topic is always because it's always fascinating for somebody to say, hey, the guy who has been voted in is the guy, you know, somebody else is controlling and we don't know who he is. As a voter myself, I'm sitting here thinking, I want to know, I want to know who's it. What do they want? Am I voting for this? I didn't vote for that. So that's why I'm always fascinated when somebody say, hey, the globalists, the globalist agenda. I mean, which agenda? Because there's so many organizations out there. I'm like, which one is which? And it's so hard to pinpoint exactly this is the guy. Because a lot of people were saying that, World Economic Forum, what's his name? The old man who resigned. Klaus Schwab. He was the guy. And then he resigns. And we're like, okay, he's gone now. Then there's somebody else thinking, okay, so this is a proper system that is set up. It doesn't matter if somebody who's in charge today dies, the system carries on. How did we get here?
We absolutely... Well, because people weren't questioning, they weren't asking enough questions, and it's like, when the whole pandemic thing came along, when they were start pushing the mandated vaccines, I immediately knew that this was a psychological operation. When you see governments around the world saying exactly the same narrative at exactly the same time, you realize that has all the hallmarks of a psychological operation. So if you want to sort of put it into one sort of thing, sort of one reason, control is the answer. They want absolute control. And that's why they're pushing these types of policies on digital ID, making sure that they've got absolute knowledge of every penny that you spend and where you spend it and what you're spending it on. And the problem with digital ID is, of course, there's the centralized digital ID and centralized digital currencies will give them absolute control over every aspect of people's lives. And it means also that if they don't like what you're spending your money on, they can stop it at source.
Yeah, and it looks that's something that that's something that the Labour Party has been heavily trying to push. But when you refer to Kier Starmer, the reason why you said he made this decision not to join the war, a lot of people, including myself, feel like this is a British position. Maybe we can go back and forth on that. The fact that we're not joining a war because our allies somehow decided to bomb another country and somehow we meant to join. We didn't, we were not informed. And, if somebody goes out there and start doing stuff, we don't have to jump and go defend them straight away. We have to make our position clear. Maybe it could be that he's scared and he doesn't want to lose the Muslim voting because he knows a lot of Islamists in the country will be mad. And we know, of course, we know that I think that is like, I'll say like that is like 60% of it. And then, of course, they can use this legal language to make it make sense, but we all know why. But
I think the other thing...
You also...
sorry, Baraka, on you go.
Go on, but you also mentioned about the Islamists, which obviously you brought it up. So why do you think you would not side with our, United States of America? This is one of the biggest countries. They spend over $1 trillion in defense budget. And obviously, we don't have that much. We basically have no military apart from the nuclear war, from the nuclear weapons that we have. Apart from that, we're basically toothless. Why do you think you would not want to side with them?
Well, before Starmer got into power, he said some of the most obnoxious, disgraceful things about, basically Donald Trump. He said the most terrible things, egregious things. I think there's not a man or a woman in his cabinet that haven't said the most appalling things about Donald Trump. So
yeah, you can tell they don't like him. Yes,
they don't. Now Trump's tried to be very fair about the whole thing. He's had him over to the States. He's had him in the White House. He's tried to say, hey, he's a good guy. I don't think he actually really thinks that, and I think he thinks very, very poorly of him now. Now, of course, just because America says let's go and attack somewhere doesn't mean that we should always necessarily follow in. Yeah. But you've got to understand that the Islamic, and I know you do understand this, but the Islamic regime in Iran has had 47 years as a dictatorship, suppressing the Persian people in the most brutal ways. We've seen maybe 40,000, maybe a lot more than that. We just don't actually know the number at this point, killed by their own security forces just within the last few weeks, month or two. So if we'd taken the same approach at the rise of the Hitler Germany, where would we be today if we hadn't fought? And where would we be if the Americans hadn't come in, albeit a little bit late on, but they still came in and they supported us. And that war effort was able to dismantle the regime there. Right. Well, actually, the Islamic regime has been compared to that similar type of thing because they're butchering their own people. They're threatening their neighbors. They're trying to obtain nuclear weapons. One of their chief negotiators with Steve Witkoff, one of the American negotiators, was talking recently, just within the last few days, about this. He said, well, when we were in discussions, the first thing they said was, we have enough enriched uranium for about 9 or 10 nuclear bombs. That was it. They weren't even embarrassed by it. That was their opening bargain, if you like. And of course, that went back to Trump. They spoke to their Israeli allies about it. And they were very worried just how close they might be to actually obtaining nuclear weapons. But they're bad to their own people. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in freedom. They believe in control as well. So one of the other things that one of the other things that Starmer and the globalist mindset is that they will use anything that helps to attack Judeo-Christianity. And of course, America is primarily a Christian country, as is Britain. Some are arguing it's no longer that way. And of course, if you flood it with enough people who are of a different religion or a different faith, then it ceases to be that particular faith or religion in that country. Correct. It might still be called Britain, but that country will no longer be the Britain that you and I love and cherish. So there's all sorts of reasons why Starmer is doing what he's doing, but it's not in the national interest. It's not in the British people's interests at all. And remember, what President Trump is talking about is the defense of international shipping. Why would Starmer not want to protect British interests by protecting the oil tankers that take so much oil and our friends and allies around the world through the Straits of Hormuz? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. When you put it that way, it makes zero sense, because why would you, especially that Ed Miliband was out there speaking, and he was basically warning the country, saying, hey, the thing is going to get expensive, folks. And but he didn't want to say it, but he knew, like, hey, it's going to get expensive. We have to brace for an impact. So why would the Prime Minister not want to go and fix it overseas? It's just, I'm trying to understand this in a very, so I can just get the whole picture of, like, well, maybe that's going to be hard because, of course, the information is heavily protected on the other side. But then I also don't understand why Trump started the war initially, because I'm trying to learn why, because there's so many reasons. P. Hegseth comes out, says something. Marco Rubio comes out, says something completely different. Then Trump comes out and he says something else. It's like, why did we get into war? It's not. Some are saying it's not to do with nuclear weapons. Some are saying it's regime change. Some are saying, oh yeah, it's because Israel wanted to attack, so we preempted Israel to attack the other guy. It's like, okay, why did we go into this war? Why do you think, Jim? Why did this thing start?
Somewhere in the mix of it all, you'll find the threads of truth, but you've got to look for them. Things aren't always as they appear to be. You've got to have an inquiring mind, and you could do exactly what you're doing, Baraka, asking those kind of questions, because it's all smoke and mirrors at the end of the day. Now, we know that Israel and Iran, I should say the Iranian regime, not the Iranian people, but Israel and the Iranian regime are mortal enemies.
Yeah,
and what you've also got to remember is all of the proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Islamic Brotherhood, they are proxies. These are heavily funded by the Iranian regime. Correct. And they are responsible for carrying out acts of terrorism all around the world. So in order to get peace and stability into the Middle East, the Iranian regime has to be removed. Now, I'm of the opinion that we shouldn't necessarily interfere and regime change. I know people say, well, you shouldn't do it. I think when you're talking about a regime that is inherently evil, not just to their neighboring countries, but to their very own people, then something has to be done. But going back to Starmer, he's sort of hiding behind this whole mask. But actually, the globalists are using radical Islam to destabilize Western nations. And you see that because it's linked into the Islamic Brotherhood. It's also linked into the mass illegal immigration that's been taking place over the last few decades. And the globalists are all the same, whether they're conservative globalists, whether they're Labour globalists, whatever the party they're in, they're globalists. And they could have stopped the mass illegal immigration taking place across the English Channel within 24 hours.
I mean, it's crazy that they haven't stopped it. So, one have to ask, why is this still going on? Because if we have the Navy...
That's a good question.
If we have all the big machines that we're seeing being rolled out and seeing videos coming out, hey, how come we can't stop a dinghy? Like, come on. Somebody make this make sense.
We could stop it. Of course we could stop it. Although we don't have the Navy that we used to, we absolutely could stop it. We have the technology and the wherewithal to do it. But they lack the will to do it.
But we are spending money to supposedly stop it.
But we're not. I mean, it's costing billions putting these illegal migrants up in hotels all around the country with free healthcare, free cash handouts, free medical care, telephones handed to them. It's a nonsense. And then when you gauge what our old age pensioners who have worked hard and paid their taxes for generations are being left on the streets, or they're having to choose between eating or heating their homes during winter. It's appalling. But here's the real answer. Here's the real answer, Baraka. They are doing what they're doing by design. It's not by chance. This is happening in France and Germany and Sweden and Norway and Denmark and pretty much all over Europe. And the reason they're doing it is they're using those people to come in and destabilize the countries that they're coming into, because they're not coming here to assimilate. They're not coming here to integrate. Radical Islam comes to conquer. And that's quite a controversial thing to say, but it happens to be the truth. That is what they're doing. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Baraka. I certainly have. Within the last 2 to 3 months, there has been a sea change with senators in the United States of America, congressmen and women, politicians here as well, questioning just exactly what's really been going on. Now, Starmer wants to introduce Islamophobia laws. Not anti-Christian laws, Islamophobia laws. Why would he be doing that?
We're going to get into that. It's just that I want to keep it separate. You see, I want to just dive a little bit deeper into this war, because it's the topic of this decade for sure. It has to be. COVID and this war will probably be the thing that a lot of people will talk about, depending how it goes. A lot of people are comparing this to Iraq, to Syria, to Libya, and all the other countries that they tried to do regime change, and of course we know that it has failed. So I am thinking maybe Trump thought he could bomb and kill the old guy, which was like 80 something years old. The guy had cancer, so he probably had a couple of days to die either way. So I think Trump thought he would kill him and things will be done. But it looks like he's not going the way he wanted to. Am I the only one getting that impression?
Well, I think, once again, it's part of a much bigger event that's unfolding. And one of the biggest mistakes that Iran made was to send missiles into the UAE and Bahrain and all these other neighboring countries, because what they did was they thought they could intimidate them into stopping having US bases in and around those areas. It backfired on them spectacularly. And now there are even those in the Middle East who are saying, we might want to join a ground offensive to take out the Iranian Guard, the Basij paramilitaries, and those that control the power structures and the people in Iran itself. I actually think that the regime does need to fall. And remember, we've got Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince, ready to go in. He is a descendant of the Shah of Iran. He's very, very popular. He's very moderate. He has publicly said that he wants peace with Israel. He wants peace with the West. He wants peace with the United States and all of the neighbors around them. So he is very popular, and I think he's certainly been seen to be ready to form a transition government. And the only reason that Iran hasn't been bombed out of existence completely is because of him, and the fact that they don't want to harm the Iranian people themselves. You've got to also remember that Persia was a magnificent, incredibly cultured, scientific, cultured government, if you want to call it that, back in the day. They were incredible people, and they still are. But this Islamic dictatorship that has governed them for the last 47 years has set them back in a terrible way. So I think you'll find that the biggest worry, I think, the biggest pressure at the moment is the Straits of Hormuz. And of course, they're trying to cause that fear and alarm to put the price of a barrel of oil up to $200 or more. But the national reserves are being pushed in, and I don't think that Trump is the kind of fellow who is going to allow that to continue. In fact, they're talking about Kyrgyz Island right now, and there is
they've
US
attacked
Marines.
it today.
Well, they've attacked it. They've destroyed the IRGC command and control over it, but they haven't hit the refineries. Kyrgyz Island, it's only about the size of Washington. It's not a vastly huge place, but it's a critical part of the infrastructure for the oil. And they're sending 2,500 Marines. They're en route now to come in, the part of the expeditionary force. They're the ones who are first in on the ground to seize and take control of it. I think Kyrgyz Island is in their sights. I think they're going to take control of it.
Yeah. So it looks like it's not going to be a 2 weeks war or maybe a couple of days war. Trump promised a quick one. He promised no war. A lot of people are very upset. I'm going to play a video of one of his prominent supporter who has been cast out to the dogs, and now we got I guess Mark Levent has replaced her. But I want to show you this tweet. This kind of slowly I didn't know how to take about this, but this was Trump last week. Trump, the United Kingdom, our greatest ally, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, is finally giving a serious thought of sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East. That's okay, Prime Minister Starmer. We don't need them any longer. But we will remember, we don't need people to join the wars after we've already won. This was a week ago. It looks like, if Trump is already won, why would he be asking Germany, all these other countries, Japan, even China, to help him win? It makes no sense, right? Because I'm trying to put this together.
I'll break it down. There's a very simple answer for that. So what he's done is he's saying, we don't need aircraft carriers. We don't need your aircraft carriers or your warships. We've got more than enough there itself, and that's still the case today. What he has, though, asked for is for an international coalition to protect the Straits of Hormuz, to defend shipping there. But you wouldn't do that necessarily with aircraft carriers. You would want a line of destroyers. Pretty much, it's about, I don't know, a couple of hundred miles maybe in total. You would need destroyers, not aircraft carriers. You wouldn't take an aircraft carrier to that close vicinity of the Iranian guard.
Yeah, they'll try sinking.
But you would, yeah, of course they would. And that's a key concern. But you can put destroyers in there. You can put in Type 42 frigates, whatever, to ensure the shipping is taken care of. And of course, there can be overflight. I mean, they pretty much wiped out their navy. Their navy's gone. And I think that most of their military hardware in terms of aircraft is pretty much gone as well. So they've got air dominance. So there's 2 different things here. He's saying to Starmer, look, if you're not going to come up with the goods, don't bother. We'll take care of it, but we won't forget what you've done. Secondly, he's saying we need a coalition of militaries to put in the right kind of size of ships, not aircraft carriers, but those types of ships that can go up and escort those oil tankers through the Straits of Hormuz.
Just a quick pause, guys. I really do need to talk to you guys honestly for a moment. You know, this channel means everything to me, right? It means absolutely the world to me. I give everything I can. I think it's my favorite part of the day, sitting here and reporting to you guys, or going outside and doing heavy reports outside. And I've been doing this since I was 14. On and off. I've quit multiple times. I've come back. I've quit. I've come back. And now I'm here. And we're here to stay. This is the next 40 years plan for me. But honestly, lately, it's been really heavy on me. Not the work, of course. I enjoy doing this. But carrying the work alone, fighting for stories, trying to highlight these stories that matters, especially when it feels like nobody's listening, I need your help. I wouldn't be asking if I truly didn't need your support. So if you believe in what we're doing here, if you believe in what I'm doing, what we're trying to build the next 30 years, if you've ever felt like this show speaks for you, I'm asking you as a friend, please keep this show going. Your support will mean more than you will ever know. And together we can finally wake up the ones who are still asleep with the truth, because the nation is desperately asking for it. So please, hit the first link in the description if you can and support the channel. Thank you so much. Let's get back into the video.
Take out any missiles or any kind of boats that might come against them. Those are 2 separate things. I can understand why people might get the 2 mixed up, but aircraft carriers and defending the Straits of Hormuz are 2 very, very different things from a military point of view.
Yeah, just before I play Marjorie Taylor Greene here, I want to ask you personally, of course, you have more information than I do. You have all the intelligence, all the people who you listen to and give you the good information that I might not have received. If you were to tell somebody who is 13 years old right now, a curious kid, maybe 9 years old, a curious kid is like, hey, uncle, hey, dad, or hey, grandpa, why is this happening? In just few words, without getting into so many things, what would you say to that person? Why the United States decided to start bombing, or why Israel decided to start bombing Iran?
Well, I would say let's look at history, and I would teach them and I would explain to them what happened in World War I and World War II. We're very bad people, and not just what happened in those two world wars, but Idi Amin, Pol Pot, all these other dreadful dictators, what they did when they seized power, the abuses of their own people and the people that were around them in those other countries. And I would say to them, look, we've got to learn from history. History teaches us that doing nothing is not an option. Even if you get it wrong, even if you make mistakes, you've got to stand up, you've got to fight, and you've got to defeat evil wherever you find it. A little bit like a mongoose with a snake. They're wonderful animals. Mongooses attack even the most deadly vipers and overpower them because they're fast and they're quick. We've got to be like that. We've got to tackle evil wherever we find it. And the Islamic dictatorship in Iran are evil. There is no other way to describe it. They are a theocracy that is completely warped in their ideology, and they are abusing their own people. They're murdering their own people. And you've got to remember what happened to Iran prior to 1979. I would tell those children, those people, those youngsters, what happened in Iran prior to 1979, and then what happened in 1979, and explain to them that there were very misguided people on the left, on the far left, who thought that they could do a deal with radical Islam, and they were wrong. They thought if they helped the radical Islamists to overthrow the Shah of Persia, and when they seized power, they'd share power with them. And oh boy, were they wrong. They were butchered, they were rounded up, they were imprisoned, they were slaughtered and executed. Tens and tens and tens of thousands of them lost their lives. And we're seeing a similar playbook playing out again today in this country, in the United States, in other European nations. We see those on the far left trying to join forces and go on these rallies with Hamas and Gaza supporters waving Palestinian flags. They have no idea. They have no idea of their history. So I would tell those young people, learn from history. And this is why we must act now. We can't let this continue, because if they get nuclear weapons, which they've been trying to do, then they will use them, no question of it. And they'll use them on us.
Yeah, I mean, nuclear weapons, I think I'm in favor of nobody having a nuclear weapons. I like the idea of if people want to have a war, I would like them to go out there and fight with sticks and bone arrows and stuff. I think people will be more restrained, will have a lot, tolerant to bear with each other, because they know they're going to get hurt. There'll be a lot of blood. But when there's nukes involved, you can just press a button and you destroy everything. And that's when I'm like, all right, I'm in favor of having everyone giving up their nukes. But obviously I'm not Zach Polinsky to tell Putin, because I know that's not going to happen. So, all right,
well,
makes sense.
You're right. I agree. I don't like nuclear weapons because I know what they can do. But the thing is, you're never going to get a situation where everybody gets rid of their nuclear weapons. I just can't see that unless something happens that's completely, quite literally out of this world. Yeah, exactly. And it has an influence to do that, right? But once again, the United States, Great Britain, our allies in Europe, they're not planning on nuking anybody. I don't believe Russia wants to either. And Russia has the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, more even than the United States of America. So I don't believe anybody in their right mind wants...
I think 4,300 something. Yeah. And US has 3,000.
Well, I maybe the numbers. Yeah, you could be right. I think it might be a bit more. I think we're talking about 6,000 odd for Russia and potentially. Yeah.
I mean, thank God. Before it used to be like 28,000. So I'm glad we reduced it that low. Thank God we're not doing the race anymore. But it looks like that might change because China has increased is trying to increase to 6,000. I think. 600. That's why they're trying to increase by the end of this decade. So it's like China wants to catch up to play with the big boys as well. Maybe they're planning for something. We don't know. And Kim Jong-un, I'm scared of that guy. I'm scared of North Korea.
Well,
I hope
North
they don't
Korea
join.
I think the estimates are they've got about 60 nuclear missiles. So
North Korea
are heavily armed. North Korea, yeah.
Yeah, North
China's
Korea, 60, 70, yeah. Now, I want to play you this
China-
video that
Oh yeah.
this is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think everybody knows. If you know MAGA, you know this is the lady that was with Trump, joined the coalition, building, getting all the good guys involved, getting again, Tulsi Gabbard, all these other people involved into this MAGA, and she was kind of like I would say, very prominent speaker. And of course, she's now been, kicked out in a sense where she is not MAGA. I want to know why you think that she's not MAGA at all. But for me, I think she hasn't changed anything. But let's play this video, and I want to get your response to this. This just came in literally like 20 minutes ago. What before we went live.
Completely disagree where the president has led the country. You know what? It makes absolutely no sense, Pamela, going into midterm elections. Let's remove Donald Trump out of it. Let's just put any president in there. Why would an American president lead his political party into the midterms, waging a full-scale major war, completely unprovoked on Iran, on behalf of Israel? And that's the way most Americans see it. They see this is for Israel, not for America. Why would an American president do that, which is forcing gas prices to hike right here going into spring break, where families are going to be driving out of town, going into summer, declaring and waging a major full-scale war that seems to have no end in sight, that is not de-escalating, it's escalating every single day. And it just doesn't make sense. And the American people did not vote for this. This is not what we campaigned for, Pamela. I went to, I can't even tell you, countless rallies all over the country for President Trump, campaigning for him and Republicans because we wanted to win. And we said on every single rally stage, no more foreign wars, no more regime change. It's time to put America first. And this is a complete betrayal of those campaign promises.
So is that what you're hearing on the ground in Georgia, where obviously there are a lot of Trump supporters?
Foss, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I mean, I've always had a lot of respect for Marjorie Taylor Greene, a very hardworking member of the administration. I distinctly remember, not that long ago, her putting a Sky News reporter firmly in her place, who was a very far left-leaning journalist. And, I think I can understand her concerns, especially coming up to the midterm elections. I get all of that. I understand that. But I think that there is another element that perhaps those within the intelligence side were becoming more aware of. I think that the Iranian regime was definitely looking to make a nuclear bomb, and more than one. And of course, that in itself, because what they would do, Baraka, is if they did obtain it, it would be similar to what North Korea did. They would conduct a nuclear test, nuclear test. That would then demonstrate that they had nuclear weapons to everybody, because you can't do a nuclear test and not have nuclear weapons.
That's correct.
Even if people said, well, maybe they've only got the one, and maybe it was just saber rattling, then they would do another nuclear test. And once the second nuclear test had been done, they would have held the entire region hostage, because it's bad enough having ballistic or intercontinental ballistic missiles raining down on Israel or Bahrain or the United Arab Emirates or whatever. But the threat of a nuclear weapon being used would have sent shockwaves, absolute shockwaves around the world. Now, I suspect, and I could be wrong, but I suspect that Trump was made aware of this. The other thing that's interesting is that even people on the right sometimes become divided where Israel comes in. And people say, it's Israel's pulling the strings. Well, I don't think anybody pulls the strings of President Trump. I don't think anybody can. He's the kind of guy that does what he wants to do and what he believes he should be doing. He's not going to be. He's not going to be told what to do by anybody else. So I don't buy that it's all Israel behind it. That's something that we sometimes see on the right, and the right sometimes becomes divided because of that. And it's usually over Israel.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of blaming everything on Israel or blaming everything on the Jews. I think you kind of, when you start doing that, you lose the bigger picture. But there is an element of Bibi Netanyahu wanted this war, and he said, hey, we're going to go either way. And then Trump launched a strike to preempt Israel. So Israel wanted to do it anyway, and they just said, hey, we're going to do it, and they're going to hit you guys back. You have to join. It looks like they kind of played his hand. Is there any sort of element of that? Kind of like a force, hey, we're going to go into war, they're going to hit your base, so you might as well join?
Well, I mean, I don't know what was discussed between President Trump and President Netanyahu, but there's no question of it. As I said earlier on, Israel considers the Iranian regime as their mortal enemy, and probably with good cause. And let's not forget the Iranian proxies, the Hamas attacks on October the 7th, the slaughter, the men and the women and the children that were butchered in Israel. I don't know that people really fully understand the horror of what went on. I covered it. I happened to be up very early in the morning that Friday that it kicked off on October the 7th. 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm starting to get communications coming in. Realized that the Hamas attacks, they were on a whole other level. So,
yeah, it was insane.
You've got to remember, Israel has a right to defend itself. Now,
correct.
It could be argued, are they going too far? In my opinion, they're not. I think they need to go a lot further. I think that
hold on.
Iranian.
When you say go a little bit further, how far can they go for you to say, hey, this is too far? Do you think they're not going too far at all?
Not at the moment. They're not going far enough.
On what side? On the Iranian side or on Gaza? Which side?
Oh, no, sorry. No, I was talking about Iran.
I was going to say, because Gaza is pretty much like, I think they went too far on that side. As a Christian, seeing the pictures, seeing the videos, seeing the numbers, I'm like, okay, way too far. But on Iran, I'm not sure because it's just getting started.
As also a Christian, I can tell you there's a time for peace and there's a time for war. And when you see evil, it needs to be confronted by whatever means necessary. So as far as Iran is concerned, the regime's got to go. Unconditional
on Iran's side,
will stop the
on Iran's side,
also with Hamas. Hamas are just as every bit as bad, and they need to be absolutely obliterated as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think once you take out Iran, I think Hamas is kind of like a little biscuit that you got to deal with. But they're still not an easy target still, but it's still something that you have to approach with caution to make sure you do it properly, because if you don't, then you create more. Because the reason why Hezbollah exists is because Israel invaded Lebanon back in the days, and Hezbollah came out as a resistance. The next minute, this big group that is literally its goal is to try to eliminate Israel. Same thing with Hamas. Israel invaded and killed a couple Muslims. Hamas. So there's all this reason why these little groups come out as a resistance. Then they go way too far to try kill all Jews, which is like, hey, hold on, that's not resisting anymore. That is just you trying to go through a genocide. Now, I want to play you this video from Elon Musk. I believe you and I like Elon Musk. I think he's a cool entrepreneur. I read his book sometimes. Well, not his book, but is one of the big book that somebody made about him. I think I read that a long time ago. But here's Elon Musk on war and how he, this is a guy who has built something huge. So he's the way he thinks is kind of important for us to kind of understand how is he processing this. And this is Elon Musk, how he's processing war. It's important we listen to this.
It's easy to go to war. It's easy to be a warmonger if you don't have to, risk dying at the front lines. Well, basically, it's fucked up if people are having like fancy dinners in Washington, D.C., while people are being slaughtered in trenches. It's like you're not feeling the pain.
Exactly.
You're not taking the risk. It's someone else dying. That's cruel and lacking in empathy.
So that's Elon Musk. What's your thoughts on that? The richest man, I believe the first person to become or will become a trillionaire. That's what he thinks about war.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that most normal people don't want war for war's sake. Elon Musk is right in what he's saying, and I very much agree with him. Nobody wants war. At least no normal person wants war. But there comes a time where it's got to be confronted, because if you don't confront it, you're going to end up paying a heavy price. Now, if you talked about Lebanon, Israel pulled back just a few years ago and conceded all that land and that they'd won over in wartime back to Lebanon. Was that not good enough for them? No, of course it wasn't, because it's never good enough. Because these people, like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the Iranian Islamic dictatorship, hate Israel. It doesn't matter what Israel do. They talk about driving them into the sea. They talk about absolute destruction of the people of Israel. So you're never going to be able to negotiate with that. These people are evil. These people are evil, plain and simple. As a Christian, I respect your position. But I am also a Christian, but
Yeah,
I'm not.
of course.
I'm
You
not.
see-
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not the kind of Christian that goes, there's no consequences.
Oh,
There's a
no.
time to fight. There's a time to confront evil, and that time is right now.
Yeah, of course. There's always a time to confront evil, but when you do confront, it gets worse. It's time to actually get a pen and do something. Because before Trump got in, there was not any talks for Iran getting the nuke, because Obama had this nuclear deal on. And when Trump got in 2016, he went out there and destroyed the deal, which obviously Iran were not able. There was not any deal to prevent them from getting the nuclear weapon. And that's how Ukraine had a nuclear weapon. They gave up. They gave it up. South Africa were trying to do it. They gave up, and they made these non-proliferation deals and stuff where they don't have to, or they will not get a nuke. And that's what Iran had, and obviously it was very peaceful until Trump got in and destroyed that deal. Then Iran thought, okay.
I would say, Baraka, that it wasn't very peaceful. If you ask the people of Iran themselves, they're not living in peace
of course.
for the last
Obviously, the
47
regime.
years.
I'm not. In a sense, I'm talking about the nuclear weapon, because of course it's never been peaceful since 1979, or even before then, because of course there was some overkilling that was still taking place. That's why the revolution in Iran was very popular among young people, because there was a very a low representation of a lot of people. That's why millions of people took it to the street to kick out the dynasty. So it wasn't like an Islamist who came out and manipulated everybody. They actually felt the pain. That's why they wanted to topple him. And then obviously Britain was involved. We did. It's like we always involved. So Britain and the CIA were involved too.
The BBC were involved in all of that too.
The BBC,
There's
the CIA, Mossad, everybody. We toppled him. We gave it to the Islamists. France was involved. And now then we're like, God, what did we do?
Yeah, they opened Pandora's box, didn't they? And that's why you've got to be very careful.
And that's what is happening right now with Zach Polinsky and the Islamists in the UK. Now let's switch in the UK. Let's switch and talk. Let's talk in UK now. All right, enough of the global stuff. UK, the Islamists have gained a lot of territory, especially from Kier Starmer. Now is before he comes and speak, he goes. Maybe I believe he probably goes and speak to community leaders, right? And we don't know who these community leaders are. Why do you think the UK is pandering so much to the Islamists? Why? What do they get?
It's not the UK people that are. It's the governments that are being elected, whether it's Conservative governments or whether it's Labour governments. The people themselves don't want this. This
Correct.
goes back to the whole question, why is a government allowing illegal activity that they're funding and contributing to and housing illegal migrants? Why are they doing that? These are not people who are fleeing war-torn countries. It's not
Correct.
women and children who are coming in. I've spent a lot of time in the south of Ireland as well. Been on many marches with those patriots down in Southern Ireland. And they're being overrun. I mean, Ireland, to put it into context, Ireland has a population of around about 3 million Indigenous Irish people.
Correct.
And in the last 2 years, that population has expanded to 5 million. That additional 2 million are not Irish people. They are people who have come in from Somalia, they've come in from Pakistan, they've come in from Syria, they've come in from many, many other nations, mostly Islamic nations. Mm-hmm. And once again, the Irish government are doing this quite deliberately. Why? Because the Taoiseach, their leader, is a globalist. So why are they doing it? Well, they're destabilizing. They don't want strong, independent, national, sovereign countries. They want a global order. So you, as Tony Blair talks about, you become a global citizen. Instead of being a Brit, you become a global citizen. You do away with borders. That's the globalist mindset in a nutshell.
Then that destroys what community really is, what nation really is, because a nation has culture, has its own identity, has its own rules and costumes and way of living, and it has its own way of poetry and all the good stuff that a nation brings out. And that's why two nations are very distinctive. You can just tell they're two different nations. And if somebody is trying to say, hey, we're going to remove the borders and we just kind of going to have to jumble up everything, just mix it all. I mean, how do they think that will be peaceful?
Well, they know it won't be. And that's part of it. It's called the Hegelian dialect. Right. Ab ordo chao, Latin for order out of chaos. In other words, they create the problem and they watch it all unfold. When people become absolutely desperate and their security and their way of life has been threatened, then they offer the solution, whatever that solution might be. Probably more control, because they're obsessed with it. They seem to also be strangely obsessed with the year 2030, UN Agenda 2030 and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which on the surface appear very noble, but actually are quite horrific when you peel back and look beneath exactly what it is they're proposing. So they're talking about banning cars by 2030. They're talking about nobody having the right to own land. You shall own nothing and you'll be happy. Once again, it's the globalist mindset playing out. You read between the lines, you look through it, you have a critical mindset, and you'll understand exactly what it is they're proposing. So by doing away with national sovereignty, doing away with borders, they believe they can usher in a global order that they control. And that probably will happen if people keep on voting for globalist parties like the Conservative Party or the Labour Party in this country. Then people are going to keep getting globalist agendas and globalist policies. It doesn't really matter who's in power, they're pursuing the globalist agenda. And when I talk about Starmer being a puppet, Boris Johnson was the same, Richie Sunak was the same. They're all globalist acolytes. And I mean, they're also in it for the money. I mean, if you take Richie Sunak, for example, there was a Guardian newspaper journalist discovered that Richie Sunak, before he became Prime Minister, in 2017, had invested $500 million of his own personal wealth. That's $500 million of his own personal wealth into Moderna. This was in 2017, Baraka. And then, of course, when he became right, what did they know? What did he know? And by the way, Moderna had never had a successful product to market.
Yeah.
So why would you put we're not talking $500,000, we're talking $500 million in 2017 into a company that never had any successful products to market.
Exactly.
That's not by chance. And then when he became Prime Minister, what does he do? He gives Moderna the permission to set up 2 massive contracts worth billions. And of course, he's making an absolute fortune. Where is he? Last time I saw Richie Sunak he was over at the World Economic Forum in Davos just a month or 2 ago. So it tells you everything you need to know. People are going to have to wake up really fast and understand that the people that they're put into power, go back to Elon Musk's point, which I agree with, those people that are sending other people to die in wars are never the ones that send their own families or pick up a rifle and go and fight themselves. It's always somebody else's son or daughter that they send to die in these useless wars. The same in Ukraine. Yeah. And don't think for 1 second that Ukraine's going away. Starmer is adamant that he's going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine as well. There's probably a lot more chance of a nuclear exchange if they do that than the Iranian regime right now.
Damn. I mean, there's a lot to process here. Just a quick pause, guys. I really do need to talk to you guys honestly for a moment. You know, this channel means everything to me, right? It means absolutely the world to me. I give everything I can. I think it's my favorite part of the day, sitting here and reporting to you guys, or going outside and doing heavy reports outside. And I've been doing this since I was 14, on and off. I've quit multiple times. I've come back. I've quit. I've come back, and now I'm here. And we're here to stay. This is the next 40 years plan for me. But honestly, lately, it's been really heavy on me. Not the work, of course. I enjoy doing this. But carrying the work alone, fighting for stories, trying to highlight these stories,
that matters, especially when it feels like nobody's listening and need your help. I wouldn't be asking if I truly didn't need your support. So if you believe in what we're doing here, if you believe in what I'm doing, what we're trying to build the next 30 years, if you've ever felt like this show speaks for you, I'm asking you as a friend, please keep this show going. Your support will mean more than you will ever know. And together we can finally wake up the ones who are still asleep with the truth, because the nation is desperately asking for it. So please, hit the first link in the description if you can and support the channel. Thank you so much. Let's get back into the video.
I guess the silence will kind of fill in the gaps for the viewers. There is a lot of things to cover. Now, talk to me about this digital ID system. I'm assuming this is kind of connected to this global agenda, right?
Absolutely.
Who's going to be
Digital
behind
ID.
this system? Now, the UK government has announced that they are the one who will have the system. They are not going to be giving it to third parties. They will have the information will be secure, they're promising us. Anything that we don't know here?
Oh yeah, lots of things. So for example, the digital ID, first of all, they've got to get the digital ID up and mandated and everybody buying into it. What they're going to do is, to start with, they're going to showcase how convenient it is, how safe it is, how effective it is. Where we've heard safe and effective before, those are the types of words that they will use, right?
Yeah.
They're going to say it's convenient, it's safe, it's effective. Of course, Starmer has said he's trying to sell it as being a solution to mass illegal immigration. And anybody that actually believes that has lost their minds, because it's got nothing to do with mass illegal immigration. It's about controlling the people. And if they can get enough people to sort of drift into this easy sort of cashless payment system, it's a trap. It's like they're inviting people into this thing. People are going to, it was like the mRNA shots. We'll give you a free taxi ride. It's so easy. Give you a free burger. Go and get your booster and, save granny or grandma. It's just all a smokescreen. So what they're going to do is they're going to sell it as being something that's super convenient, very safe and effective. There are going to be people that are so dumbed down in their own way of thinking. They're more interested in going to the pub or the football or watching a film or Netflix. They're not seeing it. And before they do see it, or once they do see it, I should say, it's going to be too late, because once that happens, then you get central bank digital currencies coming in, and it will all dovetail together, and then that gives them absolute control. This will be something, central banks that will operate out of Europe. And believe you me, they will enforce that. And once you go into that system, and they'll also say, oh, but we're just going to run it alongside cash. We're not going to get rid of cash. Of course they're going to get rid of cash, because cash gives you privacy. Cash gives you freedom. Cash gives you autonomy. And the globalists don't want that. Globalists are all about controlling other people. They're obsessed with it. And those types of systems are designed to control people and also to instill fear. Let's not forget the fear factor in all of this. They will frighten people into and bully people into going along with it. And Starmer has said that British businesses will not be allowed to employ people unless they have digital ID. So they can say it's mandatory. It's like, voluntary. But if you've got banks, building societies, financial institutions, insurance companies being mandated and told you can't sell those products and services and goods to people unless you impose mandatory digital ID, then that will cascade down to the front end users, you and I, and all the other people that are watching this show right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that is definitely not optional, for sure, because they know we need work. They know we need to feed each other. They know we need a bank. We need all these sort of things. And if they say, hey, you can only have, hey, you don't need to have it, but if you want your card, you have to get it. It's like, bro, of course I want my card. Of course I want food. Of course I want to pay my rent. Of course I want my job. So guess what? I'm just going to capitulate, I guess. It looks like they have positioned themselves very well. What you say?
Yeah, no, I think you've got it in a nutshell. They have positioned themselves very well. The only way to fight back on this is mass non-compliance. Enough people have to say we're not doing it.
How does that look like in practice? Because I've heard a lot of like mass not compliance, mass, and let's do a national strike, all these sort of thing. And most of it I've done. I've woken up a lot of people, yes, but there's not been like a good outcome from it. How would mass non-compliance look like to you?
Well, I think we're talking about something on a scale that's not been seen in the United Kingdom. And I think it's not that far away for something, deeply... let's put it this way. Professor David Betts has often talked about... He's a professor in the War College here in London. He's often talked about the fact that Britain isn't far away from a civil war. He talks about the term a dirty war. If you ever get him on your show, it'd be a good interview. Right. He talks about the tensions that are building, especially through mass illegal immigration. People have had enough. They really have had enough. And I think if you push people too far too quickly, then you're going to get that reaction. I think Britain's at that point. He's saying that within the next 1 to 2 years, possibly 3, we could be witnessing some form of outbreak of civil war in the United Kingdom, which is shocking. But he's not the kind of guy that's a sensationalist. In fact, he's not very comfortable in front of a camera. He's often said he's only doing it because he feels he has to warn people. But you get an academic like him warning about this. Then there's been other people recently that have said the same thing, former military commanders saying, look, this is not something that can continue. But of course, once again, it's problem, reaction, solution. The globalists who are pushing this agenda know that they will eventually have to give the solution. Well, the solution will be ever greater surveillance, ever greater state control and intrusion.
Don't you think we are already there right now? Because Tucker Carlson came out yesterday, I believe, and he made a post saying that they are listening and watching his texts. So who could be watching and listening to his text if he's reporting that because there is been a lot of conspiracy theory that has been proven correct, that a lot of these things that we have in our house are surveilling and watching us, and that's why you can see that my laptop is taped. I make sure nobody's watching me. Obviously, after the stream ends, I turn off the camera, I turn off everything, but you never know. Maybe the light, maybe the alarm. Something is in there that's listening and watching me, because we all know the phone is, of course, sending back the signals. So if there is a plan of like mass non-surveillance stuff, don't you think they will know about it and like clamp it down before it even starts?
Well, it's very interesting. And what you're saying, by the way, is very true. The CIA or former CIA officers have said, and in fact, I was listening to one there quite recently, where he was talking about the television, smart televisions that people have in their homes.
I think it's called
can.
Internet of All Things.
Well, the Internet of All Things is part of it.
Yeah.
But the CIA have had the ability to switch people's smart televisions on and listen to everything that they're saying in that room for a long time. You pick up your mobile phone. 20 years ago, I think it was, or maybe it was more than that now. Maybe Teflon Don in the United States, a notorious member of the Italian mafia. And he was known as Teflon Don because he used to always manage to, overturn the convictions and the things that were coming against him. But they got him through his mobile phone. And the mobile phone could be switched off, but they still have a way to activate it. The only way to be sure is to actually take the battery out. And if you've got a smartphone like an iPhone, where the battery can't be taken out, then the only other alternative is to have it nowhere near you, as in literally at the other end of the house. If you want to have a private conversation, you don't want to be around any electrical appliances. But the point is this: if enough people actually say no, and if you've got the means to resist, that's why I always teach people, and Freedom Train International is all about growing your own food, being self-sufficient, being gold and silver. These are things that will give people autonomy, even if they do introduce a CBDC, central bank digital currency system with digital ID. it's another fallback position. And I think that there is one thing that I'm mindful of, and it's why I'm doing what I'm doing with Advance UK, and that is, I think this is the last final opportunity in the United Kingdom to solve things politically at the next general election, whenever that happens. A lot of us think it might go as far as 2029. I think they have to have the general election then, unless they decide to cancel it for some strange reason.
Never know.
Or if there's there could be an early election if there's a crisis. But nevertheless, if people don't get out and vote, then they've got no one to blame but themselves. You've got to get out. You've got to get registered to vote. People fought and died to give people the right to vote in this country. And yet there are millions that don't vote. So, you've only got yourself to blame. If this happens, you get Starmer re-elected, or you get the Tories back in with their globalist agenda and their globalist policies, well, you've only got yourself to blame. But I always encourage people and our members internationally, to be as self-sufficient and as aware of all these things as possible. But I think the only solution, and I will say this, the only solution to getting the UK back on track is an Advance UK government led by Ben Habib as Prime Minister.
Right, I want to switch to Advance UK. Before I do, I want to play you this Darren Jones video. This is officially from the UK government. And then, of course, we can dive this into Advance UK, Ben Habib, and all the good stuff that has been they've been doing on that side. Now, this is a video from Darren Jones. This is the Labour Party. This guy is the head of the back door of this digital ID thing. But listen to this.
British people need an option that allows them to operate and interact with government without digital ID.
The good news is that digital ID is voluntary. Nobody is going to be forced into having a digital ID. But I am convinced that because it's going to be so much easier for you to be able to access services when you need them, you're not going to want to be on the phone at 8 a.m. in the morning or filling out paperwork and sending it in the post. And look, when the majority of us are accessing services on our phones like we're used to with banking or shopping, the great news is that the phone lines will be freer for people that want to call in to access their public services. And as we're building this technology, you get to be part of this project too. Just search digital ID consultation to take part.
British people need an option.
Right, so, I mean, as smooth as you can get, right?
Yeah, as smooth as you can get. It's so easy. It's so safe and effective. It's so simple. Just pick up the phone. It's like, I mean, how much is that guy getting paid, to say it? It's like the vaccine mandates all over again. It's safe and it's effective. And, it's not mandatory, it's voluntary, sure. But if you don't do it, you can't be an employee. You can't hire somebody. You can't employ somebody. You can't bank. You can't, So is it voluntary? I guess technically it could be classed as that, because they often said that, you could lose your job, you lose your career, you get struck off as a doctor if you don't go along with the system. Well, that's probably what they're going to do again. They're going to say, oh, it's just voluntary. And look how easy and simple it all is. But it's just all a big trap. It's all a big lie. And it's all about getting you to get sucked into this. And once you're in that system, there is no way you're getting out of it.
Yeah, there's no way we're getting out. Now, let's wrap up the last point here on Advance UK. You mentioned that Advance is the only way out. Now, there's a lot of people who would disagree with that, or there's a lot of people in the country who might not know of that. But why do you think that is the the last option of getting out, in your view, or from what you've seen that Advance UK can provide for the UK, for the British people?
Well, first of all, they have the Advance UK College. It is the most democratic political party that has ever existed. It holds the executive to account. It means that the members of the college, if they chose to do so, and they had good reason to, could remove Ben Habib as leader. Now, we wouldn't want to do that. But Ben is that shows the level of commitment that he is making to the people, not just the people of the college, but the people of the party itself. So he is all about democracy and the rule of law. Serious, principled politics. And when I say that an Advanced UK government is the only solution, I really do mean that, because there isn't a single political entity out there that I would trust with running the country. They're all compromised to one degree or another. And I think, once again, in particular with the main parties, the Liberal Democrats, the the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, we've seen what they do. They are all about making money, feathering their own nest, and a lot of them, and it's a big personal gripe of mine, a lot of the people that go into politics have never seen life. They've never, they've never come from a normal sort of background. They've gone in as a sort of a career politician straight from university. They know nothing about everyday people. And they're the first people to agree to send people to fight and die in useless wars, but they never go themselves. So I think Advance UK has the policies. There's a lot going on. And I know that you were at the Emmanuel Centre there just a few weeks ago. It was an incredible event. I was actually hoping to come and speak to you there, but we just never quite got a chance to do that.
You were there?
I saw you were there. I was there. I was like,
oh, no way. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I would have loved to shake your hand, man. Or next one, I guess.
I know. Oh, yeah. We'll see each other again. But the thing is, that was a dynamite. And I think it was at that point that people suddenly went, wait a minute. Ben Habib actually sounds like a prime minister. He sounds like somebody that really knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's got the persona for it. So I think, in all seriousness, and it's not that I'm a party loyalist. I mean, loyalty is important, but I would never have got involved back in politics if I didn't honestly believe he was the right guy for it. And I only had joined Advance UK because Ben Habib was the person that was going to lead it. Now, one of the things that's incredibly important is that structure of policy. We're putting things out there, and you were at the Emmanuel Centre, so you know some of the things that he was talking about in terms of mass illegal immigration. These are firsts for any political party. I noticed that Conform very quickly copied some of the policies that we put out on that very day.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, but people need to understand that being a real patriot means putting people into those very, very senior positions of power that will actually fight for the British interests and everyday workers. And this isn't about left and right. Advance UK is not really about left and right. It's about right and wrong. It's about doing the right thing for the people. Giving people back their freedom, giving people back their prosperity. Small government. We don't want to see more bureaucracy. We don't want to see more civil service. And we need to get the civil service brought back into line as well. And the people within the executive know my feelings on all of that. And they agree the civil service needs to be told this is how it's going to happen and this is how it's going to be, because the civil service, believe it or not, I'm sure you already know this, it's the civil service that's been running this country for many, many years. In fact, it's the civil service that run the British military. It's not the generals that run our military, it's the civil servants. And that's probably a good example of why our British military is in such appalling shape. It's the civil servants who have been running it.
Yeah, it's very shameful to see, just look at the people that used to be in it just the last 50 years and look at the people that are in it right now, and they are struggling to recruit people. And it's like they've put themselves in a situation where nobody wants to be around there anymore because the way they do it, the campaign they runs and the way they treat it. Because I was listening to a young guy who wanted to be a part of the Marine, and the way they treated him, it took him 3 months of him trying to apply, and they're telling him, hey, get this thing and get this and they were just sending him around. Oh, you need to get this document. Oh, you have to do it this and you have to do, and it cost him a lot of money too. It took him 3 months. Him applying, going back and forth. Or they're like, oh, we need this documents to make sure you're not injured. Oh, we need, it's like, bro, this guy wants to fight for the country, man. He's good. He's in good shape. And he got frustrated and he left.
That's how the civil servants operate. It's all about bureaucracy.
So much bureaucracy. It's like there's so many layers.
Yeah, exactly. And we need our generals in charge of our British military. The other thing that we need to really do with our British military is make sure that the families and the veterans, the families of serving soldiers and airmen and sailors, but also the veterans when they come out the service are taken care of. They shouldn't have to be worried about being homeless. They've served their country, many with distinction. They should be looked after and taken care of. Their health care taken care of, whether it's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or whatever has happened to them. They should have free medical care for the rest of their lives, housing provided for them for the rest of their lives. They've served their country. they've earned that honor. And to be honest with you, what's happening right now is we see mass illegal immigration wrecking all of that. Illegal migrants being given preference over housing for our former military personnel. It's not good, is it?
It's kind of like it's a very to simplify it, it's a betrayal. I have to say, just betraying the British people. Yeah. Is there anything?
I think that's a very good again.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you think that is happening in the country that we have not touched today?
Oh my goodness. I think we've covered quite a lot. I've got to say your questions have been brilliant. I've actually really enjoyed being on with you, Baraka, and we should definitely come on again. I need to get you on my show at some point because I think you'd be great.
Let's do it. Every single day we're being fed a narrative designed to keep us distracted, divided and dependent. But real winners, you and I, we don't outsource our thinking. We seek for the truth, we demand clarity, and we want the facts with no filters. That's why this platform exists, not to tell you what to think, but to give you the tools so you can think for yourself. While traditional medias are always playing the same predictable game, chasing clicks, protecting donors, and avoiding the tough questions. But we do the opposite. As you already know, we do the opposite. We question everything. We challenge everyone, and we go straight to the source. But here's the reality though. Being independent isn't cheap. If you want a media that isn't bought, then you have to start supporting the media that cannot be bought. And that happens to be us. Duh. Because we don't take orders from corporations, we don't bend to politicians, we don't adjust our message to fit the advertisers. Our loyalty is only for one person, and that is you, the audience, who actually cares about truth, who actually cares about transparency, accountability. And I need your help to keep that going. For as little as £5 a month, you can keep this machine spinning and you can keep the accountability alive, because that is something that we're lacking in the UK. So if you're tired of being talked down to, if you're tired of being manipulated, if you're tired of feeling like every headline is designed to push an agenda, then help us, join us, because the future belongs to the people who think for themselves. And we're building a platform that empowers exactly that. So support us. Support the independent media, support the real journalism that we're doing here, and of course support the truth, not the noise. Please go to the link in the description and support the channel. Thank you so much.